Welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. Today we want to talk about upgrading RocketChat in a Docker deployment and getting rid of that nasty MongoDB 4.0.x deprecated message. So upgrading RocketChat in Docker is pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, RocketChat uses the Mongo database and upgrading it is not intuitive. And I think back a little bit because I used to run the Ubiquiti Unify controller interface in software, and it also had a Mongo database, and from time to time its upgrades were also a problem for me. So this is a subject near and dear to my heart. So RocketChat gets regular updates, and beginning around RocketChat version 4, there have been notifications that MongoDB 4.0.x has been deprecated. So MongoDB must be upgraded before you move to RocketChat 5.0. RocketChat 5.0 isn't released yet, but it's coming fairly soon. So the upgrade process for MongoDB is iterative. So what are the required steps? Well, you have to upgrade MongoDB 4.0.x from the mmap database engine to the wiredTiger database engine while you're still at MongoDB version 4.0. Then you have to upgrade Mongo 4.0 to 4.2. Then you upgrade Mongo 4.2 to Mongo 4.4. And finally, you upgrade the Mongo database from version 4.4 to the latest version, which is 5.0. So Mongo 4.0 was released in 2018, and Mongo 5.0 releases are in 2021 and 2022. So let's demonstrate this upgrade step by step. So here we are at a RocketChat 4. something. And I'm not entirely sure what version right now, but I did this one particularly for a demo. I pulled an old backup up of my RocketChat and put it in a different LXD container. So if you're running the older version of MongoDB, if you go to the RocketChat bot here, you will see that first of all, it'll give you notifications on what the current version of RocketChat is. In this case, it says it's 4.6.2, which is accurate, and it was released just a few days ago on April the 14th. But then it also says that RocketChat version 4.0, or actually MongoDB version 4.0.28 is deprecated, and that it should be updated. And if you go off to this link, it gives you some instructions, but those instructions are pretty tough to follow, and I'm hoping I'm able to simplify that. So now, if we go over to my administration panel and we go to my info section, you can see that this particular RocketChat is 4.4.2, and the version of MongoDB is 4.0.8. And one thing very notable is that it says that the database engine is mmap version 1. So before we can do any upgrading, we want to be able to change MongoDB to the wiredTiger database engine. But first of all, let's do the easy thing. Let's go ahead and upgrade to the latest version of RocketChat. So here we are at the command prompt for my RocketChat deployment. If I do an ls, you can see that I have the Docker Compose, the data directory, and the upload directory. If I do a nano on docker-compose.yaml, you can see that RocketChat here is set to latest. We're going to go ahead and make that 4.6.2 because that's a good way to force an update. And if I look down here, you can see Mongo is at 4.0, and you can see that Mongo replica is at 4.0. We're going to leave those alone. The only change we're going to make is to setting the version of RocketChat to 4.6.2. So now, in order to perform the upgrade, we are going to do a RocketChat pull to pull the latest version of RocketChat. And actually, I wouldn't have had to upgrade that number in the Docker Compose if I'd just done the pull. So now that RocketChat has been upgraded, the next step is to stop RocketChat. Now that RocketChat's been stopped, we want to do a RocketChat remove to remove the container. And you should answer yes, I'm sure I want to remove it. And then you want to do a docker -compose up -d RocketChat. And of course, it doesn't have to pull the container because 4.6.2 is already current. Here we are back at the RocketChat screen. And if we go to the RocketChat bot, you can see that we're still getting the messages about MongoDB being deprecated. We haven't addressed that yet. So let's go ahead and go to the administrative screen and go to the info. And you can see in the info, we're running version 4.6.2, which is the latest, but we're still running Mongo 4.0.28. So we're going to need to perform a database migration. So when I first tried to do this upgrade, I sort of had some problems. And the reason for that is because the migration tool expects your configuration to be in the opt RocketChat folder. So in my case, I did a docker compose down. So now that the product is down, the next step that I did was I went ahead and changed over to sudo. And then I made the directory opt RocketChat. And I moved my Docker Compose file over to that new location. And I moved my data directory over to that new location. And I moved my uploads directory over to that new location. So now that everything's moved into opt-RocketChat, we want to do an ls to make sure that everything is there. Then we want to edit the docker-compose.yaml file. And we want to scroll down and make sure that you have in the Mongo section a dump directory defined. You can see that I have one, but it's commented out, so I'm uncommenting it. And then we save that Docker Compose file. I cd into data, and I'm going to make a directory called dump. So if I do an ls here, we have the dump directory and the database directory. So now I go back to the opt/RocketChat folder, and the next step we want to do is a docker-compose up-d. Start it back up in its new location now that I've moved it. And now that I've activated the dump file. I want to do a dump of the database the way it is. So there's the dump command. All these things will be indicated in the notes. So we've just done a dump of the database. Now the next step that I want to do is I want to copy that dump to a new location. So if I do an ls now, if I do a ls of my home directory, you can see that I have a mongo-mmap-dump.gzip. So that's just a dump of the database. Now I want to do a docker-compose stop. Okay, so now that RocketChat and Mongo are stopped, I want to do a git clone for the migration tool. So now the migration tool is locally stored. I want to copy the migration tool to where it needs to be. Rename my Docker Compose file because the Docker Compose file that I'm going to use is a new Docker Compose file for the migration. And then, in order to build the migration set, we do a docker-compose up-build-d. So back in the RocketChat bot screen, you can still see that MongoDB 4.0.28 is deprecated. However, if we go back to the administrative screen and we look at the info section, you can see that Mongo 4.0.28 is still running, but instead of the mmap database engine, the migration moved us over to the wiredTiger database engine, which was a prerequisite before we move to Mongo Database 4.2. The next step is to upgrade Mongo from 4.0 to 4.2. If we do an ls, at this point we have the data directory, the Docker directory, which was created as part of the migration, the docker-compose mmap, which is our old Docker Compose, and the new Docker Compose YAML file. You should stick with the new Docker Compose YAML file. If there are any customizations that you had in your old Docker Compose, feel free to migrate those into the new Docker Compose, but I left it as is. So the reason you want to leave the migration Docker Compose in place is because RocketChat has indicated that in the future they're going to use that in order to do future migrations. So it has a migration container described in it, and that's how we want to leave that in that condition. So now if we do a nano of docker-compose.yml and we scroll down, I just leave this at latest. The migration one is set to latest, so that's fine. And if we scroll down to the Mongo section, we're going to change it from 4 to 4.2, and then we want to scroll down to the replica section, and we want to change it from 4.0 to 4.2, and then we're going to go ahead and save the file. And at this point, we can do a docker-compose down, and we can do a docker-compose remove Mongo, and it says already stop containers. Okay, so that's fine. And we want to do a docker-compose up-d, and that'll restart everything. And you can see it's pulling the new Mongo 4.2 database. Now that that's completed, you want to do a docker space ps to see what's running. And you want to do a docker exec -it space, and then I'm going to connect to the Mongo container, which you can see here is called RocketChat _Mongo _1, and I want to connect to the Bash shell. So that gives me a command prompt inside of that container. So I want to go into the Mongo database administration program, and a very important step when we upgraded from 4.0 to 4.2 is we want to give it a set feature compatibility version command. Okay, so the correct command, I had some typos in my command there, is that command there, which is in the notes. And it should come back and tell you that it is okay. And what that does is it changes the feature set for the database commands to be matching the version of Mongo. So now that that's completed, we type exit and we type exit. In the administration info screen of RocketChat, you can now see that our version 4.6.2 is running Mongo database version 4.2.19 with wiredTiger. So we made the move to 4.2. So the next thing is to upgrade to version 4.4 of Mongo database. To upgrade from Mongo 4.2 to 4.4, we do a nano of docker-compose.yaml. We scroll down to the Mongo section. We change 4.2 to 4.4. We go down to the Mongo init replica section. We change from 4.2 to 4.4. We save the file. We do a docker-compose down, or you can do a docker compose stop Mongo. And a docker-compose rm Mongo. Say yes, I'm sure. And a docker compose up -d Mongo. So it pulls the new Mongo. Now once again, we want to do a docker ps, and we want to do a docker exec -it let's see, it's going to be RocketChat underbar Mongo underbar 1 Bash shell. Okay, RocketChat underbar Mongo underbar 1 space Bash. And then we want to go into the Mongo database program. And we want to perform another database compatibility change, but not to 4.2, this time to 4.4. We do an exit, another exit. So back at the admin section of RocketChat in the info tab, you can see that still RocketChat version 4.6.2, but now MongoDB version 4.4 wiredTiger. Our final upgrade is going to be to move from MongoDB version 4.4 to MongoDB version 5.0, which is the final step in the incremental upgrade. So if I do a nano docker-compose.yml, and I go down to the Mongo section, and I change from 4.4 to 5.0, And if I go down to the Mongo init replica section and change it from 4.4 to 5.0 and save the file, then our next step is to do a docker-compose stop Mongo a docker-compose remove Mongo, answer yes, and a docker-compose up detach Mongo. And now it will pull Mongo 5.0 So then we want to do a docker ps. We can do a docker exec -it RocketChat _ Mongo _1 Bosh, and then go into the Mongo database, and then do our init command, except instead of 4.2 or 4.4, you see it says there's an error, so we want to go to 5.0. And now it says that it's okay. So you can exit the Mongo admin program, you can exit the container, and that should be the end of the update. Back at RocketChat screen, you can see that we see some of these deprecated messages, but the next time that we start up RocketChat from scratch, we won't be getting any more of these errors because we're not running that version of MongoDB any longer. If we go into the administrative info tab, you can see here that we are running, well, it says we're running 4.4, which we're not, so we do a refresh, and it says we're running 5.0 of MongoDB wiredTiger. So now we're at the latest version of RocketChat as of this recording, which is 4.6.2 with Mongo version 5.0.7 with the wiredTiger database engine. In summary, even a new installation of RocketChat still uses MongoDB 4.0 with the mmap database engine. We learned how to convert the Mongo database engine from mmap to wiredTiger. Then we upgraded MongoDB from 4.0 to 4.2, then to 4.4, and finally to 5.0. So I've discovered that Docker deployed RocketChat comes up faster and seems to be more responsive, probably due to the wiredTiger database engine. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel, and we'll see you next time.